Hi, fellow travelers. Next little exercise or prompt is water. What I'd like to try to do is paint water. Now, both of these prompts, the first one, which was clouds, and this one, water, are obviously sort of similar. They both involve the use of watercolor to paint things involved with water. And I think that kind of connection, like I said in my first little video, is a real important one with this particular material and the way it can be used to paint landscapes. Because there's a lot of water in the landscape. And it's also a good way to learn just kind of how to manipulate your brush and your colors and things. So, and I assume on Iona, we're gonna see water because we're gonna be, the ocean's right there. So I'm gonna start with just this brush around. A couple things to focus on with this particular painting. It's also an exercise in using the paper effectively. So what I'm gonna try to do, and what I'd like you to try to do, is create the illusion of light on water, like light reflecting off of water, by dragging the brush across the surface of the paper to create open areas of paper where there's pigment and then there's paper, if that makes sense. I'll just get working on it. And the way you do this, the angle of the brush is real important. You know, a brush dropping down like that it makes a totally different mark than a brush kind of being dragged across the paper. The other thing that's really important is the amount of water that's in your pigment and on your brush. So over the years, I've gotten really sensitive to how wet my brush is, just how much load it's carrying. If I put the brush down and a big old blob of water comes out, I kind of have a sense of that, versus what I'm trying to do here is just kind of drag the brush across the surface of the paper to create texture. So I'm just using some dark Payne's Gray, I think. I'm just going to start kind of dragging it. So my pressure on the brush is very light. I don't have, and my angle, as you can see, is quite steep. And as I drag the brush across the paper, I can even hear the texture of the paper. Can you hear that? The other thing I'm doing with these prompts is I'm not thinking, I'm thinking about subject matter, or helping you think about subject matter, but I'm also kind of isolating the subject matter. So it's not like I'm asking you to paint a boat on the water or even clouds above the water. I'm just saying paint the water, or with the previous one, paint the clouds. And that is a way just to kind of help you focus on process and get a sense of the specific goal of what the particular prompt. So in this case, just kind of getting a feeling of how that brush moves across the surface of the paper and the kind of marks and textures that one can create in doing that, using that. So I'm just going to add a touch more water to the brush and start kind of messing around with a little more fluidity here. And you see how that changes things. There's more grays kind of coming in. I'm still dragging the brush, taking advantage of the texture, but a little more of it's filling in. Now what I'm gonna do is get some nice, I'm using a squirrel. This is I think they call this a squirrel tongue brush or something. It's like really, I love to lick it. It has this nice point to it. And I'm gonna have a lot of water in the brush and start kind of dropping it into these areas and letting the texture of the paper sort of fuel the feeling of water, of waves and light bouncing. Maybe this is like at night, right? Water at night or something. So you can see. So the other thing I want you to try to pay attention to or understand with this particular exercise is the relationship of the dry paper to the wet paper. So that's a really important concept to understand, that the dry paper creates these like really strong contrasts, and I'm trying to keep a lot of those. And so I'm dropping, remember from our previous cloud study, you were dropping paint into so I'm dropping paint into the wet areas. I mean, they're not very wet. It's not like I'm soaking them, but there is moisture there, and it's pulling the pigment up to the edge of that dry area, creating increasing contrasts and kind of the illusion of waves, kind of, or light hitting the water, or, however it kind of works out. The paper I'm working on is a rough paper. It has a bit more texture than your cold press, but not a ton. Then I'm also letting these little blasts of, what did I call those? I can't remember. Of pigment kind of spreading into the wet areas. I'm going to get this brush, I'm going to squeegee this brush off a bit and pull up some more pigment. I'm just working the Payne's Gray with this. And I'll just kind of go like this with this brush. I'm going to hit it back here. I'm going to use this brush now. Kind of want to throw a stronger wash on the back. I'm going to leave this because I know that I'm dragging the water across the blank paper there to kind of tone it down a little bit. One of the hardest things when I taught, as you know, I taught this for a living, painting. But one of the hardest things for me teaching was to try to talk while I was painting, because I just like that whole brain switch happens, and when I'm painting away and I start mumbling or get incoherent or whatever, just like I'm doing now. I don't know how Bob Ross did it. Ooh, I just had an idea. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a moon up here. You know what I'm going to do? I rarely do this, but Rick and I were talking about using pencils on the paper. And I've got this pencil right here. I tend not to use a pencil on paper, but I'm going to just use one now, just to kind of give me a guide here. What I'm going to do is get just water and, oops, oh God, this clumsy. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have done so like the moon is always the brightest thing in the sky at night, right? And to make the illusion of it being brighter, you want to create the greatest contrast. So visual contrast works this way. The strongest lights and the strongest darks always are in contrast with each other. It creates the illusion of light. End this soon. Oh, I'm gonna get my flat. Oh, I forgot about that one. Remember the flat? That's that one. So I guess it's like the moon on a cloudy night. It's like crap on my paper. That kind of sucks, but whatever. I'm gonna just kind of go like that, give it a little atmosphere. So I'm just dragging that around a little bit. I'm gonna drop some more water on top of this. Nose. I'm gonna get more, use my squirrel tongue here, go around the moon a bit more. That feels like it looks a little bit weird there, so I'm just gonna blend these out to create a little bit more of a whatever. Ooh, I'm just gonna put a touch of yellow in that moon. We'll see what happens. I might totally ruin everything. And let it kind of do its thing. Let's see what happens here. Yeah. Then I'm gonna throw, oh, now this is still kind of wet. I might be pushing it, but I just want to see what happens. I'm gonna put a little bit of yellow down here. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of cool. Okay. So try that. Try doing water. You don't have to, that's turned into a scene. I didn't intend it to do that, sorry. But you don't have to do a scene. Just paint water. But think about the relationship between the wet, the water that you're putting down and the, I got this orange here, I'm gonna try some, and the water that you're putting down and the dryness of the paper and trying to keep, get that kind of pattern of contrast going. Okay. Oh, let me just do one more thing here. Let that do it, push around a bit. I mean, for me, a lot of painting's just messing around. That's the best part about it. Just like seeing what things do.